Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Maria Lundqvist and I will be moderating this afternoon. And I work at the Innovation Finance Advisory team at the European Investment Bank. And first of all, thank you very much to the European Space Agency for making this happen together with us and also together with the European Investment Fund. And feel very welcome to this session. It's a very cold but sunny day in Luxembourg and the winter has arrived, and yeah, personally I might be slightly more excited than many of my colleagues, but I mean, in any case, this afternoon the weather will not be in focus directly, although I know that Giuseppe Borgi will deliver an extremely interesting keynote speech that might touch upon the climate change angle of space. But today we dedicate this afternoon to financing, or more accurately, financial instruments, which for some of you may sound a bit technical and yeah, potentially slightly boring, but we will make sure it won't be. So on the contrary, so me and colleagues and all our extremely interesting and very good speakers will try to help you to navigate through the potentially, as you can see it, complicated financing landscape. And this session is intended for startups and SMEs active within the space sector. And the aim is really to present you with an overview of the space financial instruments landscape that we currently have in Europe. And many of the financial instruments are, however, not space specific, although some are. So if you happen to listen in and you are not active within the space community, don't be sad about this. There are many opportunities, but as said, this is clearly directed to space companies. And as said, so this session, which I can say really on behalf of the whole EIB group, and in particular the innovation finance team where I work, we are extremely delighted to deliver this with our dear colleagues from the European Space Agency, and in particular Theodora, who is not here today, but then Jens and Luca. It's always a pleasure working together with you. And we have an excellent lineup of speakers. If you just want to show the program so that you see all the, yeah, exactly. So we have both colleagues from the European Space Agency, we have from the European Commission, from the European Investment Fund, then from Orbital Venture and the Nemetum, and then we also have the very pleasure to have the CEO ISA here. And then, yeah, so without any further ado, I will head over to Luca Del Monte, Head of Industrial Policy and SME Division at the European Space Agency. So please, Luca, give us some introductory remarks from your side. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And welcome to this workshop, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here today with you and with our colleagues from other institutions to talk about how to finance space, how to accompany the commercialization and industrialization of space. So for us, this process is the process of growth of a space company as it matures and it continues to remain competitive by developing innovative products and also to enter in a global market. So ESA has been supporting actually commercialization of space since its early days. And there has been also now, alongside institutional funding, also a significant evolution of private investment in space since the beginning of this adventure. Just to give you some figures, just to set the scene, let's say private investment in the past 5 years has doubled, and today, let's say just last year, we had more than 5 billion euro of global private investment in space. And Europe, unfortunately, is lagging behind. It's contributing very little so far to this to this big bunch of private investment, but we are there together with my colleagues from all institutions to support this process and hope that this will increase more and more. Of course, I will focus more probably just the 1 minute that remains for my introductory note on the role of ESA, because I'm sure that most of you or many of you are familiar with the role of ESA as an R&D agency that still is, and we are very proud of this technical background, but more and more we accompany industry in through private partnership, being an enabler, a customer, a broker. Each of these roles is very important and support commercialization of space, as each role is tailored to the specific maturity level of industry and the specific domain of activity. So today you will listen also to my colleagues coming from very broad background. You will hear in few minutes Giuseppe Borghi from the Earth observation side, but you will also hear from Elia Montanari, colleagues working closer on the telecommunication and integrated application side. So commercialization anyway is not limited at all to these classical application domains, and we are pushing across the four pillars of programmatic activities of ESA, including, for instance, telecommunication as in the quantum domain, business incubation center, downstream applications that today are quite substantial. So let's say you will hear a lot today about what ESA is doing in supporting industry and the commercialization of industry across the whole spectrum of our activities. So not just the technical one, but also the commercial one. And now, without any further hesitation, I would like to leave the floor also to my co-host, to the co-host of this this event, that is Shiva Dustar, that is the representative of the European Investment Bank Group. So Shiva, you have the floor. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Luca, for those kind words. And indeed, it's a real pleasure for us at the EIB to be joining forces with you, very much in the spirit of the MOU that we signed together with ESA, the bank, and ESA back in 2018. And I think this is precisely one of the areas that we were hoping to do, giving a joint perspective on how important the space sector is for our organizations, but really making also sure that the information as to how the various financing sources that are actually made available by our organizations can all help space companies regardless of what stage of development they are. So really with that in mind, I'm very excited to be part of this, and I think we have a great lineup of speakers, as you mentioned. Perhaps just a few maybe points, and I would focus maybe on just two key points that are highlighting why space is so important to the EIB. The European Investment Bank, the Bank of the European Union, is also the climate bank, and we have set ourselves some very high ambitions to really support all the activities that are required in order to tackle climate change. So hence, all going forward, all our activities are going to be in line with the Paris Agreement, and we have set ourselves up to have 50% of our financing to be towards climate action and environmental sustainability by 2025. Now, we're actually not that far away from that 50%. Already last year, 40% was going towards these activities. Now, why am I referring to that? Because in some ways, space has always been a very strategic sector, but I would see now increasingly space being strategic, not only from a geostrategic perspective, and we will hear perhaps later about what all of that means in terms of strategic autonomy, but really ultimately a huge enabling sector for society to tackle climate change, to help accelerate the digitalization as an enabler of the digital economy. And therefore, looking at it from the EIB perspective, we hope that increasingly we broaden our commitment to the space sector beyond the traditional players to really support all the innovative downstream and upstream players that are coming into this so-called new space. And with that in mind, we have therefore, that's my second point, joined really forces already through our advisory activities with the European Commission. In 2019, we published a report which you can find on our website, but I have a hard copy, which is on the future of the European space sector. It really opened our eyes to the opportunities, but also the challenges that a lot of these companies face, very much in line with the challenges that deep tech companies very often face in having access to this patient capital. So having joined forces with the European Commission on studies, on having provided advisory support to companies that then have managed to get financing, and we will hear of some of those examples later on, we believe that we, together with the Commission and ESA as well, we really can help companies that are entering into this sector, but in particular also as they have entered need to scale up and have this deep pool of capital, that the financing that we have available, and you will hear about it later on, is actually really well suited to be catalytic and crowd in the private capital. And therefore, maybe my last point here is that as part of our ecosystem development activities that we have done jointly, we have the Space Finance Lab. And it was a real pleasure that we had the benefit of doing a virtual version of it last September as part of ESA's Industrial Days, hosted by ESA, co-hosted by ESA, and hope that actually events like this will also get further traction, and in the future, as we will continue our Space Finance Lab activities, we will bring you some very interesting new ideas in new financing opportunities, but also new trends, sectors, and really bring the ecosystem closer together. So with that, I will conclude, and I think we are really excited to have such a great set of speakers, and look forward to learning more about the activities of everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ivan. Thank you also very much, Luca. And now, time for Giuseppe. Please let us know.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks. I'm very glad and honored to be here and to give my contribution to this very interesting discussion. So maybe just a few words of who I am. So I'm Giuseppe Borghi, and I'm coming from the European Space Agency. I'm the head of the PhilAb since June last year. So the PhilAb is a kind of a disruptive innovation engine of the Earth Observation Directorate. And we are generating, innovation inside, but also we are an investor. We have a program which is called Incubed, and we have Amanda Regan with us later. We'll talk about that, where we have about 100 million found to invest in innovative company in Earth observation. So I want to give you some presentation. So let me share my screen, and please confirm me that you can see the screen.
Confirmed.
Okay, so my talk will be around climate change and the commercial space industry. We intend to inform you about facts that will demonstrate that climate change is not just a scientific element or a sustainability element. So what is climate change? Climate change are what we are observing right now in our climate, and what we will see even more in the future, caused by the fact that we are changing our planet. And there are many, many different indicators. So I just choose one to give you a clear example, clear evidence of that. If you consider the CO2 concentration in our atmosphere and you see what was happening in the last 800,000 years, you see that the concentration was cyclical, but let's say contained up to a number which is 300. If we have now a look to what was happening in the last 2000 years, or even in the last 40 years, we can immediately see that there is an increase, a dramatic increase on this. That's clearly due to us, to what we are doing to our planet. But we also have to consider that there are people that are still negating climate change is something that is going to happen. So let's see what Emmanuel Macron was going to say to the USA Congress in 2018.
By polluting the oceans, not mitigating CO2 emissions, and destroying our biodiversity, we are killing our planet. Let us face it, there is no planet B.
There is no planet B. And our scientists are also saying to us that we have about 10 years before climate change will be irreversible. So there is not much time to do. So what we need to do is to know things, we need information, and we need to react. And we need information because we need to bring indisputable fact to our political debate and convince that we have a problem, we have a big problem. But also we need the knowledge to adapt to the climate change and mitigate it. And this knowledge is needed by, for sure, the agency, by the scientists, but also by industry, because industry has to deal with that, has to take this in consideration, and also consider, unfortunately, as an opportunity to help. So Europe, I want to say that is leading this debate and this climate agenda through the European initiative called a Green Deal, where we aim to become the first climate neutral continent. And there is a big initiative ongoing. So what ESA, for example, is doing together with the European Union, the Commission, EUMETSAT, we are building the instruments, the infrastructure to measure what's happening, to take the pulse of the Earth. So we are building a larger, one of the biggest constellation, Earth conservation constellation in the world. There are 16 satellites already operating. There are 40 under developments, another 13 under preparation. So this will deliver an amount, a huge amount of data. We are already delivering a huge amount of data. If you just take in consideration the Copernicus satellites, we are delivering to the community, to all of us, to all of you, free data in the size of 250 terabytes per day, so a huge amount of data. And these are data that are free to allow for, from one side, scientists to know and understand better, but for industry to generate commercial business, to generate application, to generate information that can be used to react to this. So what Europe is doing also into the private industry, so we have seen what, let's say, the public entity are doing. In the private industry, Europe, I'm saying, is catching up. So in this field, we are second at the moment. The USA is certainly leading this, but we are catching up quite nicely in building infrastructure in space to deliver what the user needs. So richer data, more data. I'm very happy that today we have also with us the CEO of ISI. So ISI is one of the companies that collaborate with the PhilAb. And tomorrow, I want to say we are going to sign a contract with a Belgian company for a precursor of what we call a multispectral companion of the Sentinel constellation of ESA. So a constellation of private satellite that will complement what the European Union is doing. That's for the space asset, but actually even more for the downstream. The downstream is a market which is very active, is growing at a double digit. So if you consider the data sales, so image and data, this is growing 9% in the last 7 years. If we focus to Europe and we focus on the service, so the actionable insight, the information that can be generated by this data, In Europe, we are growing with double digit in revenue, in number of new company, in number of employees. And frankly, I don't know many industrial sector that can claim they can grow right now in double digit. So this is, of course, attracting interest from private investors. So let's see the big number of private investors. So if I take the data we get from Space Capital, we can see that if you consider, let's say, space business at large, in the last 10 years, we have seen $177 billion of investment. But what is even more interesting, apart of the numbers, is the trend. So this year, we have seen $26 billion of investment, which is about 25% more than last year, even with the COVID. And one of the part where more investment was present, private investment, is space infrastructure, with launcher, with satellite, and so on. Europe, as we have heard, is not leading on this, on private investment, but if we concentrate on the core of space business, or closer to infrastructure, to data, and so on, USA is still leading. 60% of investment are coming from USA. Europe is 25%. But then comes China. China has presented the highest number of new investment last year. Higher, larger than USA, larger than Europe, sorry. So they are catching up very, very quickly. Now let's see about the market that says, so who is going to pay for the climate change? We can see, here you can see the projection of the market for the next 8 years. And right now the market, so I'm talking about the market of Earth observation services, okay? Right now, this market has a size of about $3 billion and is projected to become $5.5 billion. So it's a market which is forecasted to grow. If we consider the market sector that are related to climate change, I can see that about $1.5 billion of B2G or B2B sales will be climate change related. What does it mean to be climate change related? It means application like precision agriculture. There are already companies selling significant amount of money for industry, food industry, that have to deal with water stress coming from the fact that the climate is changing in South of Europe, in South America, in North America. Disaster monitoring and management. Climate change will increase, unfortunately, the number of natural disasters we will see. And so finance and insurance, they need to know what are the projections of risk profile on infrastructure or natural resources. So again, infrastructure monitoring, natural resources, these are all markets that will be linked to climate change, adaptation, and mitigation. So coming to conclusion, my message is Europe is leading the climate agenda worldwide. Okay, it's a top level political topics in Europe. And space infrastructure and services, in particular, are core of this, to climate change and adaptation. This is even more important that Europe is leading. We are in a great position. We have a great opportunity to capture. And we rely on startups, on SME, on midcaps, but also on corporates, on big corporates, to capture this opportunity. We are second to none in technology and innovation generation. Our problem is to translate this in business and to get private investment. So we are a world leader in space asset with 35% of the market share. For the ground services, we are less in Earth observation. We are about 25%, I believe, but we are growing double digit. So it's a market that is really exploding. And so climate change is certainly a scientific and sustainability challenge, but it's not only that. It's also an industrial and commercial opportunity too. And that's conclude what I want to give as my message.
Thank you very, very much, Giuseppe. This is extremely interesting for us to know and to set the scene for the rest of this afternoon. And now. So we will continue to hear a little bit from the Phi Lab. But Peter, can you put on the agenda? Super, thank you.